Ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute honor to introduce Mr. V. Vaidyanathan, MD and CEO, IDFC First Bank, to deliver the keynote address. Along with his past experiences with both a leading foreign bank and a large private bank, gives him a well-rounded 360-degree view of the NBFC sector. Sir, it will be an absolute pleasure for us to hear about your experiences of first building Capital First and now IDFC First Bank, and your guidance to NBFCs on how they can manage the current challenges and how they should position themselves in a changing ecosystem so as to be able to harness the future opportunities successfully.
Good morning, everybody. Really happy to speak to all of you today. I have, the CRISIL team asked me to speak about maybe how we see the ecosystem evolving for NBFCs and how we think they can probably take advantage of the new ecosystem that's coming along. These are the few points I'd like to cover today. When we think of the impact of COVID, I can see our data and our experience. I'm just sharing. I assume it is the same for all of you, and therefore gives us confidence that we track 3-4 things. One is we track this extent of checks that bounce. Number two, we track the amount of checks, collections that we do on the bounces. Number three, we look at vintage and recovery from the provided write-off pool. Fourth, we see vintage analysis and flow analysis and all that. Any which way we look at the data now, all numbers are now looking pretty good. In fact, I would say that things are going to get better, means not just getting equal to, but better than pre-COVID. And that's our data is saying. And I assume that most of you will probably experience the same thing because we're all in the same industry. So that's so much about the opening point and about the COVID. Now, if you see this whole ecosystem right now, everybody's powering towards retail. Question is that they're doing that, banks are doing that. So really, how do you deal with the situation? And is something that many NBFCs do think about or struggle with. For that, I want to just share this quick note about how I have thought through this specifically for this presentation. And I just hope it helps you. How to deal with the situation. Here, basically, if you think of the banking system as a whole, think of this, if this is the opportunity size work, or how do existing lenders work. By the way, even NBFC do the same thing, but I'm speaking this in the context of banks. Now, banks will always put a condition, if it's a salaried, then minimum so many years at residence, minimum 5 years experience in the same company. If it's a company, that put the condition that it should have at least 50 employees, or it should have turnover should be 5 crores. There will be some condition that will be put there. Then if you put an LTV, then there will be LTV restriction, not more than 65%. We will not lend. Then someone will put location restriction. They will say, only in contiguous locations, only in X or Y locations, around the municipality, around the place, not more than 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers. So there are location restrictions. There are municipality restrictions. Then there will be requirements for, say, guarantor. Or a co-borrower. Then be conditions for the co-borrower or guarantor themselves, saying that look, they should be meeting this criteria or that. They should be immediate family member, or they should be, all partners should be co-borrowers in the personal capacity, or all property owners must be co-borrowers to the loan structure. So these kind of conditions then come in. Then there are conditions for references. At least if 2 references should be there. Then there will be age restrictions, saying that look, minimum age, maximum age. Then there will be tenure deviation, saying that I won't lend more than this tenure, not more than 2 years, or not more than 5 years, or not more than 20-year loans. Then there will be, let me say, bureau check conditions, saying that bureau score should not be more than this or less than this. Then there will be collateral restrictions, which says that minimum property area size should be, that we call this collateral. Minimum property size should be so much. It should not be a factory, it should not be a godown, it should not be a resort farmhouse, it should not be a hotel, it should not be kacha structure, it should not be purchased through POA, it should have independent access, and so on. Then there will be some banking norm requirement. The norms will be like number of check bounces. Let me write this, the banking norm. Number of check bounces should not be more than this, or average bank balance should be at least so much. Then there will be legal norms. which will probably say that title search for 13 years I'll check, or title set for 30 years I'll check in case of plot. Then there will be a technical clearance requirement, that MODT requirement should be such, legal license document should be there, site photograph should be there, site check should be there, maybe even signature proof of tenant should be there, maybe in laminated property document are not permitted, and so on and so forth. These could be technical reasons. Then there'll be income requirement, saying that. Then there'll be FOIR requirements. So then there's some scorecard will do some rejection. So basically, when you think about it, for some reason or the other, things do get rejected, and what really gets done is only this much. So this is a very key point for you to know. I almost call this that every single line I drew here, whether it is legal, technical, income, scorecard, qualifications, co-borrower, LTV, age, tenure, bureau, collateral, banking norms, stability, whatever you call it, by the time you put all of these conditions, then the available pool that everybody is going after is really shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And at this pace, obviously, if you compete, obviously this is going to be highly competed. And because everybody wants the same set customer. So basically, if you think about this, the grid, in fact, I want to write this as the exclusion grid. Because every rule is an exclusion. Every rule is an exclusion. So they exclude somebody. So basically, think of the exclusion grid, and then you will understand why I'm saying that this is the reason why the segment in this country of financing is really so low. And now, how should we as NBFCs even look at the situation? You know, what I described to you right in the center here. By the way, I just want to make sure people can see this presentation, what I'm scribbling. Krishnan, are you able to see what I'm seeing here?
Yes, sir. We can see. Thank you, sir.
So therefore, you could see the grid that eventually gets contested for. And therefore, if you look at this grid, now naturally that grid represents this piece. You know, I have actually drawn up a grid for you where there are customer segments on this side, and then there is distribution on this side. Now, what's happening is that if you go to the super prime segment of a base, let me say, suppose this whole discussion I did was suppose for home loans. And then for that segment, if you want to do, and want to go to a distribution platform that is a DSA-led or electronic platform, there is a comparison platform. Obviously, you're going to stand in comparison because the cost of funds are relatively high for NBFC. You have no chance of fighting this game on pricing. You have no chance of fighting this game on super prime. So this is an area that you will have a disadvantage. But remember that the rest of the segment, which is where you're going to have your own proprietary distribution, where you're reaching customers directly, and even if you're playing a little in the prime segment, you are in a position to do broadly fine. Because, in terms of criteria, you don't have to necessarily follow all these criteria. There must be some business here and some business here, some business here, and every one of them have their own good, bad odds. So there is a large opportunity that is left behind. Similarly, if something is, let me say, a near prime segment, this is open for all. Because here it doesn't have to be really contested, like home loans here are going at 6.5%. Here probably home loans will go at maybe at 7, maybe 8%. Maybe here the home loan will go at maybe 9.5%. So there is a space for everybody and everybody here. The same logic applies for every product. I just took one example of home. You could think about any other line of business also. So this is a very key slide to remember. I am calling this the congestion framework. So think of the congestion framework and think of the exclusion grid or exclusion framework. So exclusion framework, when you combine that with the exclusion framework, gives you the scope of the opportunity, and the congestion framework gives you the sense of opportunity of where to play. And I do think that there is a really, big game. I can just say that because of this exclusion grid problem, I want to show some numbers to you. This I picked from the CIBIL SIDBI information. Basically, if you see India's credit is to the commercial credit, as you know that India's credit is overall probably 110 lakh crore from NBFC banks and probably about say 25 lakh crores from NBFCs. There is some interlending here. If you subtract for that, probably about 135, maybe 125 lakh crores here, all put together, net offs. Out of that, 75 lakh crores commercial lending, and out of that, 54 lakh crores is to large corporates greater than 50 crore. Maybe some NBFCs do that business, but I'm not referring to that. I am referring to the fact that out of the entire grid, see what is happening to this segment. It is only something like 5 lakh crores. That's it for lenders which are in the lower ticket size. That's it, 5 lakh crores out of, or maybe 5 lakh crores out of 125 lakh crores. That's all that is being lent in this segment, at least on the business side. Similarly, on the retail side, again, there's about 26 lakh crores that has been lent there. That 26 lakh crore, there's another 5 lakh crores here. That's about 30 lakh crore is what is largely lent by segment, all because of this exclusion grid problem I told you, and also because of the this one. So coming back to the point, therefore, when you look at this also, it is not really, if you see household credit, every country is 100, 100%, 115%, 80%, this is 80%, whether Australia, Canada, Netherlands, New Zealand, US, Malaysia. I've not taken some random countries, they're all developed countries, by the way, Finland, France, Japan, China, they're all in that zone. And even in India, this 37.7 is, by the way, includes many other income. I've done the very detailed analysis on this. I found that it's included NGOs, trust, and all that kind of stuff. But if you see personal credit as such, which is basically personal credit like home, car, two-wheeler, etc., that's only about 15%. So basically, it's right here. For example, it's not even at 37. It's somewhere in the center here. So therefore, when you look at this data, and then you look at this data, and then you look at the exclusion grid, then you really know that this is a very big game that we can play. Organizers asked me to speak a little about my own experience. Now, this is how this business grew. It grew from 94 crores, 700, 3,000, 5,000, 7,000, 10,000, 13, 18, 25, 29. So this really grew well for us. And it's not just growth. You can see how the NPA always was. It was always 2% and 1%. It's only during COVID that this number went up to 4, and we are also already guiding this will come back to 2 and 1 again. So I'm just telling you by experience that this is actually a wonderful business to build if built correctly, and being very careful about credit. Careful meaning having good systems and playing the right segments. The other thing is that, by the way, it's just not growth. You see how profits also moved. Profit moved from 35 to 56 to 114 to 166, 239, 327. Half year was 206 crore. Probably would have been double of this for that year. So you know how this game can be played. All the 12 banks are always there. Banks are always there at higher rates. How is it going on? So basically, it is not a question of let me say interest rates alone. It is a question of dedicated segment focus. It is a question of let me say specialization. It is a question of strong customer relationships that many of the NBFCs have with their customers. It's a question of reach. If it's only pricing, tell me how could Muthoot or Manappuram do business at 16 or 18 or 20% or maybe 15%? I don't know, somewhere in that zone of giving gold loans, when SBI is giving gold loans at maybe 7.58%. But Muthoot or Manappuram should have never been there for that logic. Therefore, NBFCs, because of reach, segmented focus, all that stuff we talked about, have really a very strong proposition. Now, the issue is not assets. The issue is also not asset quality. CRISIL is focused on it, and they should rightly be so, because I believe that most banks and NBFCs have figured out all these games by now. I think most people are now sensible players, and there's a bureau and all that. The issue is actually on the liability side. So on the liability side, I must point out this to you, that on the we should not I personally have always been always, even when running my previous organization, I have always been concerned about liabilities. Whether you agree with me or not, whether publicly any of you will agree with me or not, I don't know. But I am telling you, I have always been concerned. Even in the good days of 2016, 17, I was always concerned. It's not about the assets. People understand assets and all this stuff. Then people worry whether now the COVID numbers of NBFCs have got spoiled a little because of COVID up. I don't think it's a big deal. We can understand COVID-related adjustment. Then people worry whether this new norm has come, that once NPA is always an NPA till it's fully treated, etc. All that is also okay. People will understand if an NPA goes up for these two regulatory reasons. It doesn't change the fundamental economics. That also people will be understanding. We'll be understanding as people who lend to NBFCs. There's no problem. These things are not the issue. The issue is on the liability side, you should watch out. Especially, I feel that housing finance companies, though the underlying assets are strong, no doubt about it's a home, and homes have behaved very well in India. Again, typically we borrow 3 or 5 year money, you lend for maybe a little longer than that. You've got to continuously raise money, and you're assuming that money will be raised as and when it is due. Of course, good NBFCs with good pedigree and all the stuff. Even during crisis, they all managed well. But this is something for you to watch out for. I would say this to myself all the time, so I'm not just making it out, singling you out for this. Therefore, what's a better way to deal with the situation? I would say that when we do an assignment or a direct assignment, or we do a co-lending, or we do any of those transactions, effectively you're getting 15-year money. If you do a 15-year home loan under co-lending, you get 15-year money. So and you get better, returns on equity for the reasons we know. So therefore, developing those systems and capabilities and tie-ups with banks and doing that proactively before a crisis hits you is, in my mind, going to be very crucial to build a long-term franchise. I think most NBFCs understand this, that they should be asset light and we should not be, asset heavy. But I want to just reinforce that, because now the norms have also been made a little easy. In terms of funding, I think NBFCs begin to get funding again now. I think liquidity is pretty good. And from the companies we talk to generally, I think people are broadly okay. On our part, we are significant lenders to NBFCs, even from a previous avatar as Capital First. We had a rating arbitrage. We were rated higher and we could borrow at cheaper rates and we could lend to other NBFCs. And I never really saw pure NBFCs as competition. Even today, I never see NBFCs as competition. I always focus on India is so big. I told you how that I showed in the map, right? I told you about 70-75 lakh crores. By the way, 70-75 lakh crores is the organized known market. If you go by the larger grid I painted out there, probably it'll be 3-4 times that size in terms of demand. So I always see it's such a big market. I really don't think there's competition, etc. We are basically, the smell is right. We're very, very focused on smell. If the smell is right, if the party is able to demonstrate, ability to raise capital from time to time, if the promoter is committed, if the next generation is available, if the management is professional, if accounts are clean, if corporate governance is good, even if there's an issue in COVID, etc., people are disclosing and be done with it, it's more appreciated. So the point is that if these things are okay, frankly, I feel it's good, and we are quite happy, and we've been doing this for like 10 years, so it's not something new. So therefore, the way I look at it, I feel that I want to just leave you with a small note about what I feel about the credit, how the credit outlook looks like, and how why I feel that things are going to look a little better from a credit quality point of view. When I mean credit, I mean credit quality. I'll probably share this particular screen to you, and maybe this will help you understand. In terms of outlook, this is a very important slide. Okay, now you see there are 10 things I wrote down here as to why we feel more confident about the credit story, credit quality upcoming forward. One is that India has got 4, excellent credit bureaus. This makes a big difference because people do care about their credit record. Number 2, diversified NBFCs have between 10 to 15 lines of businesses. And that also is a bit diversification among businesses. Even specialized NBFCs are diversified across millions of customers. It's another separate point, but important point. And number 4 is that ecosystem is fast digitizing. So we know all the stuff is going on, GST and cash flow evaluation through the bank accounts and AIML and all that. So Indian ecosystem, even government is getting digitizing so fast. Even government data is available online. Even passports are getting electronic. Even license is getting electronic. This is a major reason why it's getting better. Number 4 is that I'm seeing a marked improvement in credit evaluation tools because of entities who are able to scan the bank statement and give us good value-added inputs on those accounts electronically rather than doing it through manual. Underwriting is becoming rule-based. This is also an important point, or not just human judgment that someone, we have to trust somebody sitting in a remote off location and we have to go by that person's decision. That's not happening now. To an extent, it is there in larger loans, but not really in smaller loans. Then marked improvement monitoring tools have improved. Then small individuals usually don't litigate. These large corporates usually, if there's a problem, they can come through lawyers and chartered accountants and all that stuff. Not that many of them are good also, by the way. So don't get me wrong. But the point is still that they normally don't like to litigate. Then the Indian consumer market, I told you the reasons I told you is quite large. I told you the numbers, right? I told you about 125 lakh crore minus 50 lakh crore. That's about 70 lakh crore and still growing. Controls, this is very, very important. Very, very important. India has built a control system, which is bureau, payments, cash flow, etc., before building the consumer credit book. This is, in my mind, a very, very important point. It's like a very important point, because see, India's consumer credit is only about 15%, and we're already having all these capabilities. Now, when we grow from 15 to maybe 100%, like other countries have, it will come on the very strong foundation, which is a very, very powerful point. So, we can keep growing without, according to me, without diluting credit standards, we can grow and grow and go for a long time. It's not the issue. So there's a very big game coming up, and I really think that if we get our corporate governance right, if we smell bad on corporate governance, everything is doomed, because no one lends us money, and then we go into a loop after that, and then even if we have no problem, this becomes a problem. So if a corporate governance is good, if systems are good, cash flow management is good, if you're conservative on liabilities, and if we are using the appropriate technologies on the lending side, then this is frankly a very big game coming up. So, Krishnan, I'll hand it over to you.